time is more important than the amount of money. Everybody says, okay, I need to be rich to start investing. No, that's how you get rich. Okay, but I can wait. Really, you can't, you shouldn't. So starting early, even if it's just with a small amount of money, is going to be way more beneficial than waiting 2 years, 5 years, 10 years because of compound interest.
And we're live. Tori is on the pod. She's here. You're in the middle of a big move and you're going nomad. Exciting times.
It's very exciting. I hope Europe lets me in. That's the big thing.
So you're going to Europe.
Checking. I am. Yeah, I'm going with my best friends. My best friend and I have this thing we call Friend Moon, and we go on a honeymoon type trip as platonic best friends. And we're going to be spending 2 months, 1 month in rural France outside Dijon, and then another month in Tuscany. And I am there to write my book. So the business is going to run without me, and I am there to write a book for HarperCollins.
That's amazing. Hell yeah. Shout out HarperCollins. He's amazing.
Yeah.
It's cool that you've got to a point in your life and business where you get to experience the things that everyone always talks about and preaches about. Like, I was like, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to travel to Europe and work remote. And now you're out here doing it. And I know it probably wasn't easy, but I've always admired about you is your bubbliness and chillness and realness, just like in the way you talk and the way you move. And I can tell why you're successful based on just how real of a human you are.
I appreciate that. Yeah. It's really crazy because we blew up in COVID. And so, I mean, COVID's far from over, but I'm starting to get a little taste of what my life might be like once we're more back to normal. And again, hopefully I'm recording this and I'm not living to regret it. Hopefully we do make it to Europe and that they don't close their borders. But yeah, it's fun to kind of figure out now what my life and what my business looks like. Because I blew up in a 650 square foot apartment that I didn't leave for 6 months. So
that's the adversity. You took it, you spun it up, and now you turned it into something good.
Let's be clear. Adversity in quotes was like me being lonely. It was not anything serious. I had plenty of other people who I knew had way harder times during COVID. But right. I think it's just really interesting to see what the world and what all of us are going to look like when we get out of this weird in between time.
So true. I kind of look down and because I'm like legitimately sick, because even though I got the Pfizer vax, and no one that listens to pause knows this, because I don't really talk about COVID because it's just so everyone, it's so political and weird. But I got COVID even with the vaccine, and I got super sick. And 15 out of 20 of the people that I was around or friends were around all got it just this past 2 weeks. And wow. It's like, it knocks me out. So yeah, interesting times indeed. I don't know what the future is going to hold, but it's definitely probably not going to be a smooth sail.
No, definitely not. But I'm glad to hear you got the vaccine. I imagine it would have been even worse if you didn't have it, but I'm really sorry to hear you got sick. That's not,
I'm not sorry about that. I'm young, I'm healthy and all that stuff. Like life is good, right? I'm blessed, just like you said, adversity, right? But the interesting thing about what you've done is you've built this brand and you've been able to educate people on finance, and a topic that is super ugly, gross, and a lot of people don't understand it. So they pay people a lot of money to teach them. And you've made it simple. Tell us about the journey there. Like, where were you 5-6 years ago before you even decided to try to turn this into a career?
Yeah. So I'll go back even further. I was lucky enough when I was growing up to have a financial education from my parents. I was lucky enough to have parents who were teaching me, don't overspend on credit cards. Here's how to save. Here's how to budget. And I grew up thinking that was the norm. I thought, okay, everybody knows that. Everybody knows how to negotiate their salary and start investing. And of course, I realized very quickly that wasn't the case, and that I was the friend all of my female friends were coming to for advice and guidance. And the more conversations I started to have, the more I realized that, this financial education was a privilege, the more, of course, it came with the responsibility. With that privilege came a responsibility. And I graduated college. I had a degree in theater and a degree in organizational communication in May of 2016. And Trump got elected not soon after that, of course, as we all know. So I was coming into adulthood and coming into womanhood in a very different America than I expected. And I think than a lot of us expected. And so through these conversations and through a lot of my research on wealth inequality, on financial inequality, I realized that a financial education for any marginalized group, but especially for women, is our best form of protest against this unjust, inequitable society that we live in. And that if we can get more money into more women's hands, the entire world can start to change. So I started the blog that later became her first 100K on the side of my 9 to 5 in marketing in December of 2016. And her first 100K was kind of my personal journey, my own financial origin story of, can I save/invest $100,000 at age 25? And not only was I able to do that, but I grew my business to the point where I could quit my job. I literally hit my 100K, was on Good Morning America, and then quit my job 3 weeks later to run HFK full time. And so it's what I believe I was put on this earth to do. We have a community now of 2 million financial feminists who are learning about money, who are paying off debt and saving and investing and starting businesses and getting new jobs and negotiating salaries. We have a #1 business podcast called Financial Feminist. And I have a team of 10 now. It's just absolutely crazy to think about where we were, or where, I was a couple of years ago. Even if you would have told me back in college, which was like 5 years ago, that I would be a financial educator, I would have laughed in your face. That was not part of the plan. But yeah, it's been the craziest ride, and it's something that I am just so grateful for and so passionate about.
That's so cool, because so many people feel they put a fake bottleneck in their face saying, I can't be this because of a college degree or the people. You were a theater major. You saw a niche that people were asking you for, as people were naturally coming up and asking you questions and you're answering. So the question is if you're listening, like, who is naturally coming up to you today and asking you, what are you good at? And you saw an opportunity, you created this group, and obviously it's probably not that easy, but it's developed that crazy, which is so amazing and a testament to your ability to just make shit happen and put stuff together. So tell me, 2 million people, that's insane.
Yeah. March of 2020, we had 30,000 followers. It is August of 2021 and we have 2 million. So we went from 30,000 to 2 million in under a year and a half, which is crazy to think about. And yeah, for me, it was a testament that people need this. People need this financial advice. People need especially women need a safe, non-judgmental community to talk about money and to see money as not just your own personal finances, but like, how can we change these larger systems, right? Because money impacts every part of our lives. And for too long, financial experts, one in particular, was saying the reason you're not rich is because you don't work hard enough, right? Or the reason you're not rich is because you buy too many lattes, right? And that's not it. It's not latte. Excuse me. Let me try that again. I'm gonna take a sip of water. It came out of nowhere. Sorry.
Yeah. It's not them lattes. That's where we're leaving off on.
We'll start over. We can edit that out.
I think it's authentic and real and legit.
We can keep it. I'm like choking on my own spit. No, but the reason we're not rich is not because we buy too many lattes. The reason we're not rich is because we have a $1 trillion student debt crisis, and wages have stagnated, and cities have gotten more expensive, and women are going to make the less than men, and Black women are going to make less than white women. And if you have a disability, or if you are LGBTQ, or if you are a person of color, if you're a woman, you're going to have to manage your money differently. And so I think part of the success of HFK was, creating the safe space that was non-judgmental and was welcoming, but also was like, hey, you've got a lot of control over your personal decisions. You have all of the control over your personal decisions, but there is so much that's out of your control. So how do we talk not just about personal finance and individual choices, but how do we talk about changing these general systems in order to support everybody within them? So I think that that's what really struck a nerve, was the safe, non-judgmental community plus the acknowledgement of systemic oppression, and that these things go hand in hand, that it's not just at the individual level, it's how do we change these larger systems in order to progress towards equality.
Talk to me about building the actual group itself. Like, what were some of the challenges in terms of making sure the narratives are right inside of the group? You get the right people producing content. You're just controlling, this board where essentially is the lead funnel, but obviously to you, it's way more than just a lead funnel. It's your people, it's your mission and all that. Yeah. But essentially it's controlling the narrative, controlling the group. You are controlling a large group of people and helping them progress forward. What have been some of the challenges in doing that and scaling it up with teams and putting pieces in place?
Yeah. The biggest piece of advice I give to anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, what I see, because I do coaching with entrepreneurs, I do counseling with them. And so many people, when they first get started, they're like, okay, I want to get as many sales as possible. So I am just going to be everything to everybody, right? And when you are everything to everybody, you're nothing to nobody, right? When you are trying to be the solution to everybody's problem, when somebody goes to learn more about you or learn more about your work, there's going to be that moment of like, okay, but who is this person? Is this person for me? I don't know what this person does, and I don't know how they're useful to me. So in the early days, like my first big media feature, I was on Market Watch, and I was talking about this mission of financial feminism, of, not just building wealth for your own sake, but how can we use that as a form of protest to raise other women and other marginalized groups up? And the interesting thing happened is that, the majority of Market Watch readers are white men in their probably 50s, 60s, or 70s who didn't love that I was saying things like cisgendered or acknowledging privilege. And I had quite a few comments. I would say 90 to 95% of comments were something disparaging like that. Like, why does she have to make this a women's issue? Why can't she just talk about personal finance? And that for me was a turning point, is I could have either taken those comments and been like, okay, well, sounds like I need to do something differently. But instead, what I did is I realized, you know what? These men are not my target market. These men are not my target market. They're not who I want to talk to. And if they don't get it, that's okay. If they don't get it, that's okay. And if I lose their potential business, that is okay. Because I will gain women. I'll gain, very specific groups of women who have become complete and total brand evangelists for what we do at Her First 100K. And so that was something that I did that was very strategic, is I got a little controversial. I was willing to very, very distinctly say who I was talking to, what I wanted to talk about. And if you didn't agree with me, this wasn't the community for you. This wasn't the place for you. There was other communities for you out there.
So you set the infrastructure. You put the rules in place, and you put your foot down and said,
well, and not just rules, but like, this is the mission of the company, is like, we are liberal. We are unabashedly feminist. If you are someone of another gender identity, you're welcome, right? You're welcome to come, but this is largely for women. And this is largely for women who want to, again, build their wealth as a form of protest. And so, yeah, I lost quite a few people with that, potentially controversial messaging, but I gained people who were so committed, tattoo HFK on their forehead. And then I think in addition, it's really important that when you close in on that mission, you have to decide what behavior you will or will not tolerate, right? And so for me, if I am saying we are creating a non-judgmental community, if someone is in there creating, stirring shit up, if they have something to say that's judgmental, that's shaming, they don't get a second chance. They're removed from the community. And again, that I potentially lost a customer, right? But I've created a space where the people who really are my people can thrive. And if I have publicly committed to something, right, people need to see me back that up. I think the word community gets thrown around so much. It's this like marketing buzzword, right? Like Facebook loves putting the word community in every ad they've created. So true. And I'm like, yeah, but like Facebook, are you keeping people on your platform safe? I think you're kind of sort of trying, but are you really? There's been plenty of times I have not felt safe on Facebook. Plenty of times. And plenty of times I could talk to any female friend of mine and they would say the exact same thing. So I think if you're going to build a community and call it a community, you need to figure out what that community stands for, what is acceptable in the community and what is unacceptable, and then actually enforce those rules. And again, it sounds like I'm like some sort of dictator, and I don't mean that at all. It's actually a really beautiful thing of knowing that if you're coming into my house, this is going to be a safe space, right? And I'm here to support you, and I am here to make sure that you can ask those quote unquote stupid, but really not stupid questions without getting shamed or judged for it.
Right. I mean, you're playing mama bear, you're controlling the pot, you're making sure that everyone gets what they came for. You know what I'm saying? You have to have rules in place. And this is exactly the question I asked. And your answer was absolutely fantastic and phenomenal. It basically says, look, like these are how this is going to go. And if you aren't happy with it, then leave.
Yeah. And it's like, wish you the best. Like, peace out. But yeah, don't let the door hit you on your way out.
It's cool though that you've partnered up this whole like much bigger mission of helping women, but at the same time teaching basic financial advice, which a lot of stuff you can learn online, but a lot of people aren't motivated. But you've been able to attach this deeper motivation to get people to hold themselves accountable. And I think that's just so honorable.
Well, I appreciate that. And for me, it's even larger than that, which is, yes, it's good marketing. I mean, I'd be lying if I said that, of course, that isn't something that's on my mind. But for me, it's more the realization that why hasn't all of this financial content connected with people? Because yeah, you and I could Google something like how to open a 401k or, you know, how to pick a index fund, right? And get plenty of good information, plenty of bad information, but plenty of good information. Why hasn't that connected with people? And specifically, why is that not connected with women? And through, again, conversations with friends, what I was seeing just in the kind of landscape of personal finance and largely just like women in general, the women's communities, is that very few women were seeing, again, that financial education piece as a form of like are gaining the life that they wanted, being able to leave toxic situations, being able to donate to causes they believe in, being able to start businesses or have kids or not have kids or get married or not get married, right? That is the power of a personal finance education and a financial foundation, is those choices that open up to you. And in addition, pretty much all of the content out there, like I was writing this in my book. I'm writing a chapter in my book about spending the other day. And when you Google like how to build wealth, still in 2021, the conversation for women is like, oh, coupon clip. And here are like 20 meals you can make for under $20, and like stop buying Louboutins and purses. And you know what the conversation is for men? Index funds, real estate, cryptocurrency, right? It's not like stop spending all your money on frivolous things because you can't control yourself. It's still in 2021, this like very misogynistic messaging. And so that's what I realized. That's what I realized I could bring to the table was really good advice that was, you know, not necessarily anything that somebody hasn't said before. You know, I'm not inventing personal finance education, right? This has been around for a really long time,
right?
But it's in how it's delivered, and with this larger understanding that, again, it's not just about you, it's about you getting your financial shit together is literally an act of, you know, it's kind of like a middle finger to the patriarchy, right? So I think that for me, I was really strategic, both in the marketing standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, but also just because that's what felt good and that's what I wanted. And that's what I know from these conversations with women, that's what I knew everybody else was looking for too.
Yeah. And you mastered it. You were able to fit into that sweet spot. It's so interesting. Like you mentioned, that the knowledge is out there. You can go read Tony Robbins' Master the Money Game. You can read JL Collins, you know, a book to, what's that? A guide to wealth or something like that. Amazing.
Rich Dad,
book.
Poor Dad, Dave Ramsey. I mean, yeah, Jim Cramer, right? But what do all of these people have in common? Well, first of all, they're men. Second of all, a good chunk of them have, I mean, I literally say, like, when people ask me, like, what are the next 5 years for your business? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? And I literally tell them, I want to be Tony Robbins, but less icky.
I love that
because
vision.
It's like, there's a lot of good advice, but it's like, do you actually like these people? Like, do you actually like share the same values with these people? Because I hear this a lot because I'm very publicly outspoken against Dave Ramsey and not only a lot of his advice, but plenty of his business practices are borderline illegal and not great. And people are like, yeah, I mean, he doesn't seem like the greatest guy or like the greatest boss, but like his advice really helped me. Yes, totally. His advice can be super helpful, but I want you to get really good advice from people who don't make you feel like shit, or people who operate in a society that's they're actively trying to do good for every person of any group. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's the other thing too, is it's like, if you are the person who's like, oh yeah, I don't think I really connect with this person, but they give good advice, so I'll just continue listening to them.
Yeah.
They're not the only options anymore, right?
It is interesting that you say that, like all of the largest, like, because it's predominantly a male dominated industry of people teaching people, right?
Yeah.
So that alone probably, obviously based on what you're telling me, is a big factor of why people don't dive into it. But when someone sees someone that offers a safe space, it becomes cool and becomes doable. I mean, getting a financial education and getting your shit together financially is one of the most empowering things you can do, being able to make decisions on your own, not relying on people, being
Right.
up by yourself. Like that is essentially how you can achieve happiness and not needing or relying on anything else but yourself.
The amount of times, somebody will come to me and be like, I feel like we could be friends. Like, and I've never met them, right? Which is a larger conversation about parasocial relationships. But I think like it's the perfect example of like, I remember at a panel 2 years ago, I was the youngest person on the panel by at least 10 years. And everybody else, like they became my friends. They were super qualified. They were financial advisors. They were venture capitalists. They were there in blazers and pencil skirts and heels. And Tori Dunlap rolled up in Adidas and a leather jacket and jeans, because that's just who I am. And that's for me, like, that's how I want to approach these communities. Is it doesn't have to be stuffy. It doesn't have to be traditional. It doesn't even have to be capital P professional, right? It's like, I want you to hear about money like you were talking to your best friend over a drink, right? Or talking to your sister. Like that's the vibe I want. Because this super intimidating topic becomes way less intimidating when we approach it with that sort of mindset or that sort of angle.
So true. Take off the suit and just realize like, yo, let's just talk. Like, hey girl, hey, let's get this thing together. What you doing right now? You making them dollars. Let's just allocate them efficiently. And over time, it's gonna capitalize and grow. It's an exciting message.
Maybe I've said that quote for quote, hey girl, hey, but
hey girl,
who knows?
Hey.
Yeah.
I love seeing just change in people that are actively doing that, because obviously are there certain, I mean, obviously the topic of, like you saying, like not having enough resources, not having enough teachers in this world, but are there any other things that just really kind of piss you off to the point that if you're tired on a late night and you're like exhausted, you've done 6 interviews, still this topic, you're just like fired up. You're like, you just concocts deep in your soul. What are some of those things that just ignite you?
Do you have 3 hours? Like, let's go for 3 hours. Okay. First is that I've already given a couple examples of this. Society does not like women who have money at all. Like still 2021, society does not like women who have money. And there is this unique double standard that like every hoop we jump through as women, when it comes to personal finance education, there's another hoop to jump through. So I'll give you like the example of this. So let's say that you're like, okay, I feel like I've made a lot of decisions that I regret around my money and I'm like ready to get started. What happens traditionally is that you are shamed and judged for those choices, right? And told, okay, well, like you've made all these mistakes in the past and this is why you're not good with money. So like sucks to be you, right? Let's say you overcome that shame, which is hard enough. Let's say you overcome that shame and judgment. And now you're starting to build wealth. Then you're actively told as a woman, well, actually, you shouldn't want money because money's evil. Money's bad. And you shouldn't be talking about money because it's taboo and it's impolite and it's gauche. And those are 2 narratives that are perpetuated by the patriarchy in order to keep women playing small, right? They profit off of our silence. They profit off of our inaction by telling us, don't want money because that's bad, or that's tacky, or that's greedy. Don't talk about money because that's taboo. But you better believe that men are talking about the stock market, right? Or talking about the bonus they pulled in, or, they're talking about just having money in general, right? It's not a taboo conversation in the way that it is for women. And again, like I mentioned before, the way we educate men and women is very different when it comes to money. It's spending or budgeting for women. It's wealth building for men. And then let's say you overcome that. Let's say you get through the shame and judgment. You're like, no, I want to talk about money. I don't believe that, having money and wanting money is bad. Let's say now you have money, you have a 6-figure salary, a 7-figure business, you're killing it. Then we shame or judge women for making money in that way. And for talking about their businesses or the wealth they have built. You can go to any TikTok where I've ever talked about my own personal finance journey and see this in the comments.
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with people are just like, most people in society, when you see someone who's successful, they try to do the Ann effect and try to pull them down because they're insecure about themselves. They're not celebrating.
You're totally right. But I will also argue it's the internalized misogyny where I will get, unfortunately, from a lot of women, like, hey, I really like you and your content, but like you're bragging. Like, why are you bragging about you and your accomplishments? And it's weirdly a Venn diagram of people who say that to me and people who like are Elon Musk worshipers, right? Or people who are just like, I don't know, Jeff Bezos can do something. They're like, oh my God, what an innovative genius, right? And it's this double standard between how we view success, money, business for, again, women compared to men.
So you've even seen some people be kind of hypocritical inside of the community.
Oh, of course. And we see this all the time. I see this all the time, not just in my own life, but let's look at like Simone Biles, right? Who wore, a sequin in the shape of a goat on her leotard because she is literally the greatest of all time. And people are like, she needs to be humble. She needs to be more humble. Like, I don't like her because she's not humble, which is not only internalized misogyny, that's internalized racism. Same thing with Serena Williams, right? Why does she talk about her success all the time? We don't say the same thing for Roger Federer. We don't say the same thing for, the male equivalent, right? It's very much that
it's almost
uncomfortable.
It's almost like the internal narrative of women in this sense holding themselves down by maintaining this narrative.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Is like society, patriarchy has told you play small. Don't just be grateful for your opportunities. Don't talk about money. Don't, build wealth, right? Because that's tacky or people won't like you, right? And then it's actually proven, right? It's like, okay, I've built wealth. Cool. I got through all of that. And it's like, oh, well, I'm still being told, I'm being judged and shamed, even if I don't have money and I'm trying. And then I'm being judged and shamed if I'm doing well, right? And so it's like this horrible, like you can't win kind of side effect of that. And this is not something I've discussed publicly, but back in the times where I was, getting closer to my 100K, I was very upfront about like what my net worth was, about like, what my savings rate was, how much I had saved. And I would love to be transparent with that number now, because I've worked my ass off. I have built a lot in terms of our business earnings, in terms of my own savings and my own investments. And I don't feel like I can publicly talk about it, because not only are people going to feel entitled to then tell me what I should do with that money uniquely as a woman, but in addition, my safety comes into question in a way that it doesn't for men. My safety, the security of literally my physical safety and the safety of those people that are important to me. And so I think that is a huge double standard that I see in my own work. Like, I am the most transparent person about money, and yet I'm forced with something that I should be so proud of and able to acknowledge publicly. I don't feel like I can, because of the way society views women who have money, and as well, the way that we treat literally people and their physical safety around money or around wealth building.
Well, there are people out there are crazy. Like, people are crazy.
Well,
it's taking a step back with the whole digital nomad thing. Like, you're traveling to France. It's like, I went to Colombia for 6 months, and I was telling some of my girlfriends this, and they were like, oh my God, I would love to go there, but like, I could never. And I'm like, well, right. What do you mean? And then they completely brought it up to me. Like you as a guy, you don't understand that it's completely true. Like, I felt completely safe out there, but I could foresee, people are scary, and you got to really double take yourself if you can't defend yourself, or if you're looked at in that sense. So I get what you're saying.
And that's just what I mean in general. It's like society does not like women who have money. And unfortunately, we all have, just like we all have internalized racism, right? We all have internalized misogyny, all of us, even women, right? We have internalized misogyny. And so and like your point of like, we do a lot of projecting, right? On our own insecurities, we project them onto other people, right? And we have an issue with other people because we really have an issue with ourselves. But I'll take that one step further, where it's literally because we've grown up in a patriarchal, racist, ableist society, right? We have these certain perspectives towards other groups of people, right? That are often not very kind and not very inclusive, right? And I think that money is the perfect example of that, of just how that manifests in our thinking, our perspectives, and our own insecurities. Because again, we've grown up in a society that has actively told us, don't talk about money. Don't talk about it. It's not polite to talk about it.
Well, it's also interesting that once you get financial success, right? I think I say it in every podcast, so sorry for everyone. I apologize, but Naval Ravikant, he said, you need to get rich because then you need to find out that it's not the answer to happiness, right? Like you need to get money before you can realize like, yo, like there's some more deep work here. So I think the word
I will wholeheartely disagree with that, actually, because it's the same narrative that money doesn't buy you happiness. I agree with the sentiment, right? Which is really that if you're trying to seek out maternal or, physical things to make your life better, right? Materialistic things, that's not going to do it, right? This sense of love, the sense of belonging that we all need as people, a Maserati is not going to do that for you. Right. But telling somebody who cannot put food on their table consistently, telling somebody who, if they had one more bedroom in their apartment, right, that money can't buy you happiness.
But that's
right?
the second part to the equation.
Thing.
But that's the second part of the whole thing he's saying is that you can't say that to someone who needs to pay rent for the month, who has 3 children. Like you can't tell someone that needs money that money doesn't buy happiness when someone needs it. You know what I'm saying?
So tell me the quote again. Maybe I misunderstood.
So
what was the quote?
You need to then get wealthy and like have success and have financial success before you can realize that that's not where happiness comes from. Right. Because once you get past all of that stuff, you can pay your bills, you have a house, you have a car, you have the necessities, you have friends,
right? The stability.
Then you're alone with you and your thoughts. And the question is are you happy? Right.
I get you.
But you need to get there. And like, you're not, it's like Dave Chappelle has a funny quote, like you ain't going like, you can't tell a broke person that money doesn't buy happiness, right?
Right, right. So I misunderstood and I'm sorry. But yeah, for me, I would agree with that. I think it is, unfortunately, 95, probably 98% of people are never going to get to that point, right? And they're never going to get to the point where they have all of their needs met to the point where money is not a worry or an anxiety for them anymore. And then, right. And that's part of what I'm trying to change, right? Is not just how do we get individuals there, but how do we get a society in place? How do we get systems in place that better support people so they can get to that? There's so many statistics that people believe they're going to be millionaires. And in reality, very few people actually are.
So let's talk about this a little bit more. Because one thing I love bringing up with my friends is just interest rate calculators or compound interest rate calculators. It's so fun. If everyone's just hanging out right now, go on your phone and just look up compound interest calculator and just type in, there's a simple formula. How much money do you have in your bank now? And if you take a 7 to 10% annualized interest rate, which is the typical returns of stocks, and let's just say you put 7% and you continue to invest, let's say 10,000 annually, and you compound that, you're seeing numbers in like the 400Ks and people go, what?
And I want to be clear, compound interest works whether you put $10,000 into your account or $10. Like, and I get that thing a lot of people are like, I'll do that, right? I'll tell people, okay, $5,000 in 30 years is this amount of money. And people are like, well, I don't have $5,000. Okay, do $2,000. Don't have $2,000, do 500. Don't have 500, do 100, right? Even if you can only do a certain amount of money one time for a while, it is more important. And I tell this to everybody, time is more important than the amount of money. And I'm literally building an investment community and education platform right now that's launching later this summer because I think so many people miss that. Time is more important than the amount of money. Everybody says, okay, I need to be rich to start investing. No, that's how you get rich. Okay, but I can wait. Really, you can't, you shouldn't, because my 100K, my original 100K at 25, if I never contributed another penny to that 100K, at retirement, I would have 1.6 million. That 100K would turn into 1.6 million, even if I never lifted another finger because of compound interest, right? So starting early, even if it's just with a small amount of money, is going to be way more beneficial than waiting 2 years, 5 years, 10 years with double the amount of money, right?
So true.
And then again, it's just so important that you just start. I see from women all the time, this like analysis paralysis of like, oh my God, the stock market seems really intimidating. And honestly, like they haven't made it easy to figure out, but like, it seems super intimidating. I don't know how to get started. So I'm just not going to do it. Or like, I'm going to get caught up in like, what brokerage should I pick? Should I pick Acorns or should I pick Ellevest? Should I pick Robinhood? Should I pick M1 Finance? Right. It's just like, I need you to get started. Like, I just need you to get started. I am literally a globally recognized financial expert. There is so many things about the stock market that I am learning all the time. It's just important that you get started.
Amen. And that's the truest power ever. It's so simple. And I think a big thing too is talks about a lot of super successful multimillionaires. They always talk about the importance of giving and taking 10% of your wealth and giving it to charities and all these things, right? But you have to get into that habit when you're broke, right? Because giving away $10 of every 100 is much easier than giving away 10,000 for 100,000 or 100,000 for 1,000,000. It's these little habits that over time compound. And the second thing that's interesting is the societal way of wanting to look fancy and cool and sexy. And, I'm very grateful and lucky. I got started in direct sales company when I was younger, had quick success, got like a BMW, was rolling around, like doing what I was doing. In reality, that lesson was such a big lesson. I lost it all, was looking like an idiot. That experience taught me so much about real happiness in people. It's like, I'd rather have money than just look like I have money. And when people feel that and they actually have a bank account that is growing and developing and they know they have that, it's the most empowering feeling. I always compare looking at my bank account like my report card. Remember that feeling when you're like looking at your report card when you're younger and it's like so scary. You're like, or if you're in college and you're spending 400,000 and you're not getting good grades. Yeah, it's intimidating. You're letting yourself down, your parents and everything down. But I think that stigma needs to be lifted where you are happy to look at your bank statements. You're happy to look at your interest rate and your calculations and your assets, because over time that gives you a serotonin boost because you are on the right direction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I literally have an episode of the podcast. It's episode 11. We talk about this financial self-care practice. And that's what we talk about. We have people do a money date and I guide you through it in the podcast, but literally dedicating an amount of time to sit down and just look at your money. And just like any other part of self-care, like it's super uncomfortable when you first get started, right? And I like to say that self-care is the hard shit. Self-care is the shit you don't want to do. Self-care is going to therapy and having a hard conversation with a friend and working out when you don't want to work out and eat a salad when you don't want to fucking eat a salad, right? It's the same thing with looking at your money, right? And it's going to become a habit. It's going to become more comfortable as you get going. And you also can't see progress if you don't look, right? So if you set a goal, but then you never look at your money again, it's going to be very impossible to continue towards that goal if you don't see the progress you are making. So that's part of, we call it the ostrich effect in the personal finance community, which is people bury their head in the sand and they act like their problems don't exist, right? They don't check their bank account statements. They don't check their student loan balance because it's too scary. And I totally get it, but you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Like if that means putting yourself in a down comforter cocoon and getting yourself a glass bottle of wine and like looking at your money, like that's what you got to do.
Right. Get uncomfortable being uncomfortable. The ostrich effect. That's fantastic. I'm picturing an ostrich throwing his head in the dirt and he just doesn't want to look. He doesn't want to see. It's easy to just hide our problems. And because of credit cards, that's the thing that frustrates me a lot because I love this topic. And a big reason I wanted to reach out to you in the first place is just, I know your detailed analysis of all this stuff with credit cards. It's not the same when I go pay rent in cash than when I pay with a card. When you don't see money coming and going because of auto pays, you quickly can fall into a trap. And it's like, if people just use credit cards correctly, then they could have unlimited points. They can travel wherever they want. If they just paid off their credit cards effectively and efficiently, there are huge assets. But people that allow themselves to get into credit card debt and have that bad debt weighing them down, it's a tough topic because if people need to learn it.
Well, and I'll take it one step further. And this might be a stat that you were not aware of. I wasn't aware until a couple months ago. So we talk, again, this is like larger choices or personal choices versus these larger systems, right? So a lot of the like don't overspend on credit cards, like conversation gets focused on an individual level. But when they did studies around why women go in debt, the majority of women go into debt because no one explained to them how a loan works. And that's not because women are stupid, the exact opposite, but no one has taught them what that means to put money on a credit card or to put purchases on a credit card, right? Or to take out a student loan. Women hold 2/3 of the student debt in the United States. And it's been proven that that number is so high because no one's guided them through, okay, here's what it means to take out a $40,000 loan. And here's what it's going to cost you in interest over X amount of years, right? No one's explained that to them. And so I have all of these stories of women, girls going into Victoria's Secret when they're 17 and Victoria's Secret employees literally telling them, hey, sign up for our store rewards card. Oh, you get 10% off. They're 17. They don't know that this is a credit card, right? They don't know that they're going to get their credit checked. And so when I talk to them, they're 27, it's 10 years later, and they're still either paying off their debt that they didn't know they had accumulated, or their credit score is completely tanked because not only did they make this choice, they didn't know any better. And you have predatory companies who know they don't know better. Sally Mae, Victoria's Secret. You have all of these companies who know that their demographic don't know any better, and that's how they're making money. So yes, it's individual choices, 100%. Plenty of people knowingly went into credit card debt, right? And didn't have to. It wasn't like an emergency situation, right? Plenty of people have done that. I think in addition, plenty of people go into debt because of that lack of education, that lack of understanding, and the lack of the communities where people can go and be like, hi, I think this is a stupid question, but like, tell me how a loan works, right? Because we don't have a lot of those communities either, which is why her first 100K exists. So,
amen. Yeah. I never really thought about that. It's like every store you go to today, they just shove their own personal store credit card in your face and like, oh girl, well, you want 20% off, get this credit card. And you're just like, I'd be an idiot not to get this credit card because it's so easy. And next thing you know, they don't even know how to pay off the credit card. They don't know where to go to pay it off.
Sometimes they don't even know it's a credit card. Sometimes they don't even know it's a credit card, right? If you're 17, you don't understand that they're asking for your social security number to check your credit, right? Or to like sign you up for a credit card. You don't know any better, right? And so I think that that's, again, why this financial piece is so nuanced, is it's not just personal choices. Again, you could take, this could be a drinking game and take a shot every time I said something like this, but it's not just personal choices. It's the larger systemic issues at play here as well. The lack of education, the lack of environments to ask questions, the way, again, we treat women who have money or women who are looking to gain financial knowledge versus the way we treat men. I mean, it's all of it. It's all entrenched together.
It's interesting. It's interesting that you found a way to pull it all together, address these issues, but at the same time, you didn't come back from the background. You just do your own research. You go down these rabbit holes, and then you start seeing real stories helping people. Has there been a story particularly, and I know like you got bajillion stories, right? Anyone that's successful building online courses and communities, stories sell, baby. Stories tell, right? If people see a great story they relate to, they're like, oh, if she can do it, I can do it. But has there been any like particular situations that just kind of maybe early on in your career that you heard that just really struck a chord with you?
I used to say that we would get messages every day from women that our work was changing their lives. And then I used to say every hour. Now it's every 10 minutes. My favorite, I was able to leave my abusive partner because I have an emergency fund and I have my own money and I'm able to leave. I was able to negotiate $25,000 more for my next job. I have actually, a lot of my clients have turned into friends. I have a friend who lives in Seattle. We got her, oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember. It was a couple years ago, $50,000 more in her next job. I quit my job and I'm able to run my business full time. I got out of debt. I paid off all my student debt. You know, I could send my kids to summer camp and not worry about how I was going to pay for it. Like, the stories we get are just amazing. My favorite though, are when women realize that this is so much bigger than just money. Like we were talking about earlier, that it's not just you being able to pay off your debt or being able to invest. It's the realization that, oh, now that I have money, my entire life has opened up to me. And for me personally, like I can see this in my own life. I don't put up with any bullshit anymore. I don't put up with bullshit from a client. I don't put up with bullshit from men I'm dating. I don't put up with bullshit at all because I don't have to. Financially, I don't have to. I don't have to find a partner in order for them to support me financially. That's not part of it. And if you go on a date with me and you're intimidated, that is your problem.
What are your thoughts then, like given that your opinion and just societal norms of how typical dates go today, like how do you think, what do you think it should be? Should it be 50-50? Like in terms of paying a check, imagine you just go on a first date.
We went
like,
on a hard pivot. I think that's a personal choice. I 100% think that's a personal choice. I'm not coming in just like I get asked a lot, like, okay, I'm getting married. Like, should we combine our finances? I don't know. That's a personal choice. I think you should always have your own separate money. I 100% believe that. Even if it's just 3 months, you should always have your own separate money.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, for me,
yeah, I don't know if that was like a hard pivot too. It was, but
it was a little bit of a hard pivot. But
yeah,
I think it depends on the individual. It depends on the couple. It depends on, like, especially when you're first getting to know somebody, sometimes those conversations can be a little hard.
Right.
Like, I find it typical, at least for me, it's like, oh, one of us pays for dinner. And then if we like go to drinks before or like ice cream after, like the other person will pay for that. Right. And then maybe the flip happens on the next date. Right. Like that's pretty standard for me personally.
But the big theme though is that by both parties having money, it makes sure that people are there for the right reasons, which is, enjoying each other's time, happiness, right? Like,
well, and for me, more of what I was talking to about my experience and my journey was more like, again, with you asked about like the impact our work has had on women is the realization that like you don't have to stay in toxic situations that you don't want to be in anymore. So if a client starts, being really difficult to communicate with, or, doesn't treat us really well, or my team really well, there is no client that I'm not willing to fire, right? Because we have other sources of income. We have other ways to make sure that I can make payroll for my employees, right? So it's the same thing, like I said, with my personal life of, I am not dating in order to find somebody who I need to either teach me about money or to manage money or to make money for us. I'm good. I want to walk into a relationship and not have to worry about that for me. Right. And it's just in general, like I just walk down the street more confident. I just, it's so cool that I can pack up all my stuff and fly to Europe on my own dime and run my business from a Airbnb in Tuscany with probably a glass of wine in my hand and, pay for a dinner and buy my best friend dinner without even thinking about it and donate. I literally like submitted this huge donation a couple of days ago to a charity that I love. And I didn't even think twice about it. Didn't have to check my bank account even. I was like, cool. I know that I know this is going to clear. Like, let's do it.
That's amazing.
Like, I didn't have to think about it.
Congratulations. So I think, you did it.
Thank you. That's thank awesome. You. But like, this is the feeling I want for every single fucking woman, right? That's the feeling I want. The feeling of, independence, not like fuck everybody, but like just knowing like you have.
Well, you probably get this a lot, like, oh, well, listen, Tori, look at you. You can do it because you're so well spoken and you like, I'm too shy or I'm too this. Like, I'm not you. How can I do it? Like, what do you say to those
I often
women?
get actually, you're a white woman. You have a ton of privilege, which 100% valid. And I actually just talked about this a couple of days ago on an Instagram live. Like that again, take a drink, take a shot. This is why we can't just talk about choices, because yes, I worked really, really hard. I'm also a cisgendered middle-class white woman. Like I had a bunch of privilege. I had a bunch of privilege to get me to where I'm at. Did I work my ass off? 100%. But I didn't have to start at home base in order to run all the way around the bases. I started at like first base or second base. So yes, this is why I'm saying, like, I want every woman to have this feeling. And I want every woman to have a financial foundation of financial independence. And it's unfortunately, it's going to make me cry. It is unfortunately her personal choices are not going to be enough. And that's why it's so hard. Is she can work super hard. She can work, and save millions and millions of dollars. But at the end of the day, these systems are still going to actively repress her. And for me as a white woman, I have certain systems that I'm facing that other people are not, and certain things that are to my advantage, unfortunately, that other people don't have the advantages I do. So I think that, again, this is why it's so important that yes, your personal choices are hugely impactful to your life, to your wealth building. We also have to talk about these larger issues.
Well said. It was beautiful. I always love asking this question when there's only one thing I ever ask that's standard, because it's just so like, and it's, if you could go back in time, right? Like OG Tori, like going into maybe just finished high school, and you could have talked to that girl who you are now and who you were before. And you could have said like, listen, girl, like I got 1, 2, or 3 things I got to tell you right now. You better listen up. And it can't be, I wouldn't have said anything because it made me who I am, even though it's a fantastic answer. What are some of those things that you might have told yourself?
Number one, that man you're going to meet when you're 20, don't stay with him for 3 years. Don't do it. That's the first thing. Want better for yourself. Want better for yourself. That's the first thing. Second thing is everything you know about yourself is true. And people will come. Ooh, this is like a Barbara Walters question. It's like, ooh, I'm gonna make my guests cry. I have known I was powerful from a very young age. I struggle with a lot of things. I struggle with a lot of different aspects and, working on it. One thing I've never struggled with is my self-worth. Ever. I have 100% thought myself worthy of love, worthy of opportunities. And I knew that very, very young. I knew the kind of person I wanted to be and the kind of life I wanted to lead. But then what happened was society didn't get it. Society didn't understand. And so I either had to constantly prove my worth or constantly question it. And I would reaffirm her. I would reaffirm that she knows exactly who she is and exactly what she wants. And yes, she will change and she will grow and she will have really shitty things happen to her and she will have really beautiful, joyful things happen to her. But ultimately, she knows exactly who she is already.
I'm
going to end it there.
That's a great message. That's a mic drop. That's everything. Tori, I appreciate you. I wish I had more time with you. And I'm sure everyone who talks to you thinks the same thing. You're just a light. You keep it real. You're out here inspiring. You're making money with a purpose, which is amazing. You're helping people do it along the way. You're sharing in the journey. You have a career that essentially gives you residual happiness, not just residual money. And I think more people need to focus on things that allow that. They need to set up their life, not just their bank account. And you found a way to do both of that. And that's incredible. So I'm excited for your trip to France. You're going to crush it. Hopefully they're cool with like the travel restrictions and all that. We shall see. But how can everyone continue to follow the journey? Where do they go? Give them the direct.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. So I am at her first under K on all the socials, HERFIRST100K. Instagram and TikTok are our two big platforms. So come say hi there. And we just launched our podcast, the first season of Financial Feminist in May. And within 72 hours, we were the #1 business podcast on Apple and worldwide. So
crushing it.
We dethroned Dave Ramsey, and that was the pinch me moment to end all pinch me moments. So season 1 is out. You can binge the whole thing, and we are hard at work at season 2 coming out next year.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you. Till next time, and we'll get it going.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to another episode. Remember, hope is not a strategy. Keep making moves. Till next time, peace.